All right, welcome everybody back. Another episode of In the Dugout, special series that we are holding over the next month or so with doing interviews and podcasts with college coaches. Joining me today is Kurt Elbin, recruiting coordinator, assistant coach at Virginia Tech. And let's get started. Coach, how are you?
Jason, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I think we talked a little bit offline. We got through the holidays, so it's all downhill from here. The for me anyway, the exciting part of the year,
Yes,
and busy time of the year for everybody.
Yep, just got to get this weather out of here, right? So we can get on the field and get it going.
Now, how much snow did you all get?
We had like 1.5 inches, 2 inches, but that wasn't the issue. The issue, and schools were closed today, but it was just some rain. It turned into rain, and then it got really colder, and kind of just froze some stuff. So that's what we're dealing with right now. But I'm actually looking at our field, and it's almost completely bare right now. So
yeah,
hopefully we're in good shape here in a week.
Yeah, same thing. We got probably, like you said, like 1.5 inches, 2 inches, but had some sleet, freezing rain, and you know what happens with that, and schools and buses and everything else, and rightfully so. But I told my kids today, if they're not back in school tomorrow, I'm going to drop them off and they can sit outside and figure it out. Can't learn anything at home, right?
You could take them to the woods, just let them learn out there. So,
well, look, we're going to jump right into it. I want to start off with, if you can give everyone just background and just kind of your path to where you're at now at Virginia Tech.
Yeah. So grew up in Pennsylvania and was lucky enough to have a path to go play some junior college baseball down in New Orleans at Delgado under Joe Sherman, who was one of the best baseball people I've ever been around. So he kind of got me interested in coaching, because I redshirted my first year. I wasn't ready to play, and got to sit next to him and just learn and listen to him talk about the game, and moved on to Lock Haven, graduated, and had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to sit behind a desk, but I had a business degree, and sometimes you fail at things, and there's opportunities that arise from that. I was trying to take my insurance test, and I failed the first time right out of college, and then I got an email from my college coach about an opportunity at Division III school out in Philly area, Allentown area, actually Muhlenberg. So that's where I started. 1 year there, went across the state of Pennsylvania to Thiel College, and had a good little run there with Joe Shawley. And then I went to Shippensburg in the PSAC and coached under Matt Jones for 2 years. Went to VCU, and that's kind of where, I got my foot in the door. But it was as a volunteer that could recruit, very different role, just with the situation with Paul Keys and when he hired me. And Sean Stifler took over there at VCU, and we had a good run for about 5 years or so. And then Coach Sheff picked up the phone when he had an opportunity to come here to Virginia Tech and called me up, and the rest is history. That's how I got here.
Yeah, I think our first, probably our first interaction, if you will, was you were at a game at Dinwiddie when I was at Dinwiddie, and you were. I can't remember who we were playing. I want to say we were playing Hanover. I'm pretty certain. I'm pretty certain we were playing Hanover. And Seth was pitching, and we had Tomas and some other guys, and obviously Hanover had plenty of talent on the field. So I think, like I said, I think that was the first night that met you, if you will. I guess that was probably 2017, 2016.
Yeah. It's close to 10 years ago. I know. I remember the game for sure.
He threw. We lost, but he threw well that night.
Threw really well.
He was funny story. He was pretty pissed with me. Took him out. It was like a 1-0 game. It was like the 4th or 5th inning. It was like the first 2 weeks of the year. He was pretty mad. And talked after the game. Well, Coach, why'd you take me out? His competitor. Like when he was on the mound, that's what he did. And I I was like, dude, look, like let's worry about June. Let's worry about May and June, and not rolling you out for 90 or 100 pitches on on March 15th. And
Yeah,
kids that time of year, or kids in general, they just want to compete and win. So
it's
sometimes
good to have.
sometimes that's a tough conversation, but
Yeah, it's probably better to be that way as a player, though. In our eyes. So
for sure, I'd rather take it out of them than try to put it in.
that's right. That's
Um,
right.
but all right, now getting on the topic of what we're here for, to talk about Virginia Tech and recruiting. Um, Programs and staffs, they all have their own style and what fits in their program. You and the whole staff at Virginia Tech have had tremendous success with players in the draft over the past few years, specifically kind of as it relates to your day-to-day responsibilities. Y'all have had 11 positional players drafted in the last 5 years, 7 in the top 5 rounds. So kudos to you and the staff. Have done a really good job. Have had pitchers obviously drafted as well, but wanted to stick a little bit more on the offensive side. Outside of the humble answer that you would probably give, which is having good players, what would you contribute to the success of the Hammer and Hokies, as the hat says?
Yeah, how about it? I think it's everything, and that's such a vague answer, but I think it boils down to our staff. Um, Tyler Hansen, Tyson Petersham, Kyle Sarazin, Nick Halisa is now a former player, is kind of helping out. Obviously, Coach Chef and what he does. Just on the offensive side, I know Coach Fichter does a phenomenal job with the arms, with Sarazin, but just those guys having daily input with our guys and being around them every day, and our support staff, the guys that are behind the scenes, our strength guy, our nutritionist, our team chaplain. So I think it's just this conglomerate of people that our players have access to on a daily basis, and we hope our vision aligns and the approach to the game aligns, and usually when people are really good at their jobs in their respective areas, you see growth from our players. But more specifically speaking, I guess, to just the offensive portion, there's a system in place that we have here, and I think it starts with the recruiting, getting guys in here that you feel like you can mold and you can work with, and maybe they're a little off in certain areas, but you feel like there are things that you see in their game that you can work with and look up and have a vision of, hey, 2-3 years down the road, if they get these at bats under their belt, they're going to become this or have the chance to become this. So it starts with the recruiting, and I think once they get here, just a system of building it from the ground up with their movement patterns, with how they get strong and how they eat and how we build them mentally on and off the field, and and then it starts with their swing and how we attack that with various different ways, whether it be video or blast or the TrackMan data. But probably the thing that we do the best and the most of is just a daily, just we attack their daily process in what they swing at, what they hunt, in relation to why they're good, maybe what they do well in the zone, or what they do well with their swing, or what they do well as a baseball player, but constantly sharpening that aspect of their game is the reason why I think we've had some success. And guys will come here and they want to do everything. They want to run fast, they want to bunt, they want to steal bases, they want to slug, but sometimes their skill set doesn't really match all those different things. But I think as we get the data on these guys, and as we get in a fight with these guys on a daily basis, and we're able to look up and be like, this is what you do really well. You handle fastballs in these zones. You need to stay off this zone and lay off this pitch. And, these type of pitchers, you need to look here, or whatever it might be. But I feel like once we kind of get the player to really buy into what they are and what they do well, I think you see them take off. And we're always working to improve on a player's weaknesses. But I think it's a long answer to a really easy question. But that's kind of what there's a system in place, and we have to change it every year and a little bit, tweak it here and there. But I think it has a lot to do with the people that have access to our guys, and then just getting them in our system.
That's what I'm here for, Coach, to give you some easy layups in the
like
question department. and obviously you've had some guys, especially I know you deal a little bit more specifically positionally with infielders. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, yeah. I spent a lot of time. Me and the big guy spent a lot of time with our infielders, and we have there's days where different defensive things I'll be bumping around, but usually it's with the guys in the dirt. Yep.
And had some pretty good success with the Carson DeMartinis, the Chicks, Tanner Schobels. The list kind of goes on and on. I know y'all got some there now.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia guys, I guess you could say kind of more specifically as this relates, that y'all have done some pretty good things with.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
What would you say are some key factors in recruiting positional guys for the program? Like, what are maybe some things that stick out? And what are some things that y'all really, really just kind of dial in on when we're talking about positional players?
Yeah, and look, recruiting it's not an exact science. If someone says it is, they got it figured out. I don't, and I definitely don't like to sit here and think that I do. But the one thing I would say is what I try to relate to or tell our guys that go out and watch players is they have to be able to, regardless of age, fit in with your current team in one of three aspects, whether it's having defensive value, doing something in the box, or being able to really run. And so as you watch these players and you're trying to, watch a guy, is he going to hit? I don't know, but he can really defend. Perfect. Let's take a chance on him. We like the way he moves. Or, hey, this guy, like, he can really hit and he's got thump, but really worried about his position. Isn't that what we're for, right? As coaches, like trying to find a guy that maybe doesn't really fit the mold in every category, but he can do one or two things really well. Like, we understand the pecking order and where we're at. We're not going to sit here and try to go get the guy that can do all those things, because realistically, we're not going to be able to get that guy, that player. But the kid that might be, just really good in a certain area, we'll take a flyer on. And, very similar to, I think, DeMartini is a young player. There was question marks about his defense. And same thing with Shobo as an offensive player, and Chick, as an athlete and as a defender. And I think we embrace the challenge of bringing in guys that we really like and we really want to coach. You want to coach them, go get them. And some of the best advice I got as a young guy, you want to coach that player, go get them, and try to figure it out with them, whether it be teach them, how to get on the barrel a little bit, or teach them, there's ways to gain bat speed and exit velocity, and there's ways to get guys to defend, and to be serviceable. So for me, it's about just getting around guys as best you can, and just asking yourself at the end of the day, is that a player I want to coach? Is that someone that has value right now? If you were to put them in a practice or in a game with your team. So that's kind of how we look at it. And there's obviously some more to it, but that's probably a short answer there with the whole recruiting thing.
Yeah. Carson was probably one of the best, just like hitters, just pure hitters, power, hit tool, just on barrel all the time in high school. It didn't matter whether he was facing the worst arm or the best arm. It seemed like every time we saw him, I remember it was the Cardinals did a little thing at like Dinwiddie Sports Complex, which is 15 minutes from me. Went out there and it was like St. John's or the Cadets, Cardinals, and I guess at the time was the Orioles, or now the Phillies.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. You're talking summer.
Group. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Summer. I think it was fall, but yeah, travel stuff. And I think it was Hack was facing DeMartini, and Carson, and Hack was throwing outside of Carson. Hack was throwing well that day, but Carson was all over Hack that day. It's just like everybody he faced, he handled. And Schobel was just like an absolute electric factory on the field. Anytime you saw that dude, he was all over the place.
Yeah, but he's undersized, right?
For sure. For sure.
There's programs and they programs that do a really good job, and they won't take a guy under 6 foot. It's just It's just kind of what they are and what they do. And, we've never really been that way. There's obviously the dream players that you want to go get that are 6'2" and left-handed and can play shortstop and run. And, sometimes you got to have a vision for guys. And I feel like we've had the ability to do that, to a certain degree here.
Now, obviously the hot topic, transfer portal, JUCO, roster size, high school recruiting. What do you think are some key things that stick out with that issue these days, and kind of how is the staff handling and sifting through all of that and adjusting?
I think we're still adjusting, and I think we're trying to figure out exactly what it's all going to look like. So there's not going to be a good answer here. The way we are trying to handle it is, one, you got to handle what's in front of you, right? I think your roster. You just got to view guys a little differently. At least you're trying to, right? So I don't know if there's a lot of room, for a guy that quote unquote is a projection guy, a guy that might get 5 to 10 to 20 at bats as a freshman, or maybe even quote unquote red shirt, gray shirt. And then the second year, he gets a little more under his belt. And then you look up in his junior year, he's an everyday guy for you. Unfortunately, I don't know if there's a lot of room for a lot of those guys in a shortened roster anymore. So currently looking at your roster and just trying to fit guys into what you think it's going to look like in a 38 to a 34 man roster. I think that's important, right? And then, kind of going from there. So, but I think for us, like, we're not exactly sure. So it's still like, hey, is it going to be better to go get a high school guy? Is the JUCO ranks going to be better now? Is the portal going to be better with Division 2s and 3s because there's fewer opportunities? I don't know if we know, but so we're going to try to do a good job in all three of those facets, like all three of those areas. We went and saw more JUCO baseball than we ever have this past fall. In the last couple of years, we got out and tried to spread the net a little bit in the high school ranks. With PBR events and what you guys do, which is great. And obviously keeping your eyes on the portal. So as it goes, the one thing I will say is this, and from a position player perspective, what we have access to in the portal and what we've been able to get, that player, traditionally speaking, is not as polished, clean, ready to play, more of a prospect than the kid that we have that gets some at bats as a freshman or plays quite a bit as a freshman, as a sophomore, and then what you could try to go get. So comparing juniors in the portal to juniors on your team, for what we have access to and what we've been able to get, those are way two different players for us. So we're going to put our stock in as best we can positionally to developing high school players that come in as freshmen, and then kind of just, filling the holes with the portal guys. That's kind of the route we're looking at. Whether that changes in the next few months or the years is we don't know yet. But that's kind of our conversations as a staff, and it's kind of what we're looking at.
But I mean, safe to say, obviously the class sizes are going to be affected, depending on the program significantly, or at least some. But I think it's safe to say that, like, everyone who says, who kind of goes 2 feet in and jumps all the way in up to their neck, like, that makes the statement of, like, high school recruiting isn't happening anymore. Would you agree that that's false?
For some programs, it's not. For Virginia Tech, it is. So, like, I know there's some teams out there and programs out there that it seems like they're just going to go with an older player. But once again, like, our best arms and our best players traditionally have come from the high school ranks in the last 3 years.
Brett Renfro.
And that's just where we're at with it. So for us to shut down, high school recruiting, I don't know if that's smart for us. That it probably isn't. So we're not going to do it.
It's funny. We always tell, somebody who says like, well, I don't agree with this ranking or what you think about this player, regardless whether it's a player or a parent or college coach or whatever. Like, hey, like, prove me wrong. Like, been wrong before, we'll be wrong again. We're all wrong at some point. Some more than others. I remember sitting in a game, and I think I was texting Coach Hansen, and I was watching Renfro, and Renfro was all over it at the plate, and like he was fine on the mound. And we had seen Brett a couple times, and he was a junior future games guy. And Coach Hansen was like, yeah, he was like, I just think he's more of an arm. I was like, Coach, I just like the bat. Like he was just, he just produced in high school and was just, seemed like that's just what was going to play potentially. So shout out to Coach Hansen, projecting the Friday night guy as a freshman. I think I saw a video yesterday of him throwing. He was like 97, 96, something like that. I'm pretty sure.
I hope so. He's been good. He's been good, and just need that big boy to go out there and do his things for 7 innings and just pass it on. So,
but yeah, shout out to Coach Hansen for proving me wrong on that one. So I appreciate that.
He's never wrong, by the way. So I'll shout out Coach Hansen too. He's always right.
In the past, you've been, somewhat vocal about the importance of some of the offensive data points like Blast. We use Blast at the majority of our individual events. What are some things that with Blast that allow you to either identify players, help with development internally of the program, and potentially project some potential future success?
Yeah. Blast is a great tool, and we've used it probably for 7 years. I think we got it my first year here. So we've been at it, and there's a plethora of things that you can do with it. But, we'll start with more from a recruiting perspective. And one of the ways that I've used it in the past and our program has used it, where you have a camp and you throw it on them, and maybe a kid just doesn't have the bat speed, right? I've always liked to compare what our current players' numbers look like, metrics look like on our team to what recruits look like. And sometimes I think Blast has helped to bridge that gap. A kid might be a little light with the bat speed, but he rotates at a high level. I think that's a predictor of power and a predictor of being able to make later swing decisions. And guys, we've not had too many, I would call them just everyday elite high profile hitters that haven't rotated at a high level. So that's something that we look a lot at. Just the ebbs and flows of bat speed and rotation due to their workload on a daily basis, right? So that's jumping more into the team aspect. So watching guys' patterns as weeks go on, and maybe you need to adjust their lifting because their bat speed starts to dump, and just looking at patterns there. And then more so on more of the player level inside our program, we use it to attack just certain things that are maybe our eyes are seeing something in the swing. Maybe we haven't had the guy on video in a little bit, and then we get him on Blast, and you start to look. And one of the things that we look a lot with path, and especially with just the way pitching has evolved and how pitching coaches try to attack certain hitters. Like, you want to be relatively flat, right? Having a steep swing or being, extremely uphill through the zone. Sometimes those things just don't allow you to have a lot of success offensively. So when we're trying to make a swing change, one of the things that we look at a lot is early connection and impact are path-driven metrics. So you can take Blast and take the player and just really isolate that metric and start to really adjust his swing with different drills or switching where his hands are or just playing with that a little bit. So there's some different areas where we use Blast a lot, not only in recruiting, not only as you're just looking at our team in some things that maybe programming we got to switch, but also just at the individual level, it really helps when we start to attack the swing.
Yeah, and I think it's important to talk about, like, we throw all these measurables out there. Like for us, obviously we try to push that information out there on whether it's an individual kid or a group of kids or a class or from a particular event or whatever, things like your hand speed and your rotation, and your time to impact or time to contact, hand speed, bat speed, like all of these things don't necessarily relate directly to success, but they do give some direction in terms of potential success, or where that player can be, and potentially what you can get out of the player. Like Coach said, I think that's the rotational acceleration is an important thing for everybody to understand. Like, hey, the higher you go, the faster guys throw, the better guys spin, the better finishing pitches guys have and stuff like that. And so your ability to react later and have more time, if you will, to recognize pitches and still get to where you want to get to at the point of contact is important. And I think that's what, some of those, like you said, some of those metrics allow us to look at in a potential evaluation of a player and just kind of see where they're at.
Yeah. It also it lets you attack the low-hanging fruit as well. And so if you go in there and you see a player scores and they're red and yellow all over the place, and he's got a couple greens, like take the one red thing, try to fix it and see what happens. Or, we have guys that cannot get certain metrics into a range that Blast tells you that it's successful, or it's at the major league average, but they're extremely, their numbers tell you they're good, right? Whether it's their exit velocity or their in-game performance and what they're hitting, it is what it is. We have a really steep hitter right now, but he's a long guy. He's got big bat speed and everything. Kind of the ball flight tells you he's doing everything right. So, we worked tirelessly at switching some things, and we got it better with Blast. But at the end of the day, I was like, hey, you go in and swing at strikes and take balls, and you're on time. You're like, you're going to hit 350. So there's some things there you got to take with a grain of salt, but we use it a lot. Blast has been really good to our program.
Yeah. I think sometimes when, talk about hitting with whoever, regardless of who it is, for us, evaluating or watching a player, for you recruiting or whatever, I don't care if you stand on your head, hold the bat backwards, if you're on barrel and you're on time, whatever it is,
it'll never not be that way either. It'll never.
Yeah.
You can fight about swing mechanics and drills and offensive approaches and whatever, but if you swing at strikes and you're on time and you're pretty committed, you're going to have a chance to hit. There's no doubt.
For sure. All right. You've been to future games every year that I can recall. How big of an event is that for your staff in terms of talent level, ability to see a bunch of different guys from a bunch of different places, kind of what you get coming out of that in terms of recruitments and where y'all are at with that event?
Yeah. I believe in a sandwich method. You know what the sandwich method is? So you start with a great compliment, and then you give the constructive criticism, then you end with a compliment. So I'm going to do that here. It is the best event out there. When you want to go and find uncommitted guys and see guys play their best, where there's some anxiousness there with these young guys playing in front of all those coaches. So watching guys overcome that in that event, I think it's one of the best events out there to evaluate, watch guys, and kind of it wraps up your summer completely. I love it. And what we take out of it are a ton of names, the ability to it's also at the end of the summer. So the timing's great. You've seen a lot of these players, especially in your region, go in and play in, certain events, whether it be PG, PBR, or whatever it is. And then they go down to Georgia and there it is, right? You're going to see them against really good arms, or you're going to see them against really good hitters. So in that regard, it's awesome. We got to get away from the black and white uniforms. We got to go back to color coding the uniforms. I can't watch it anymore. It's so tough to recruit. So there's the constructive criticism. And I'll end with this. It is so well run. It really is. It's you want to go there and just watch the showcase and then just go watch a couple arms. You can do whatever you want. It's separated in a way that, I think it's one of the easier events to recruit as well, right? Usually one location right there. So we love it. We send 3 or 4 to it. out of our staff every year, and it's been really good for us. And like I said, it's the end of the summer, and it's like there's this build up that you look forward to. You're like, hey, we'll catch him in the future games, right? Saw 1 or 2 outings, we're going to catch him in the future games, and see him throw against really good hitters or see him hit against a good arm. So it's been awesome. So there's your plug. And Virginia guys are the best out there. So
I appreciate that, Coach.
yeah.
2 things. One, the boss man made it out last year. So I think that's
he had a vested interest in there.
He did, but he was locked in too. He was locked in. I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, but I think there's a potential of some of the uniform changes coming because we have heard that, even though there's letters on the uniform,
but the dudes, they're like this the whole time, and you can't see it, or their hands are right here, and you can't.
Yeah.
Oh,
I understand. I understand. I like the sandwich method though. We kind of flew right by that, so we'll move on.
There we
go. Now, when it comes to younger players, obviously, the recruiting timeline has changed. The recruiting rules have changed. There's no setup phone calls. There's no, offers, if you will. So we know that schools cannot actively recruit, communicate, and offer those players now in terms of your underclassmen. But how are y'all handling still? Are y'all still tracking those guys, making an early board, getting some rough ideas, and just kind of following, if you will?
Yeah. The lists. There's just lists upon lists when it comes to the recruiting side of things. Nothing has changed. Just the ability to just have that personal connection is lost, which makes, I think, some of the makeup stuff tougher to gauge when you get to August 1 and then you get to September 1 when you can do visits. But I've always felt, and I learned this, probably most just at a young age from, Matt Jones and Sean Stifler is just in the recruiting world. I don't think there'll ever be something that is more important than relationships, whether it be with travel coaches or organizations like yourself with PBR or high school coaches, and having and hopefully building relationships with players that you can't talk to and recruit when you get them to a camp, right? Just and more like letting them see how you interact and watching them and just starting to build that rapport. So if you can find a way to do that, obviously with not being able to call, text, email, whatever, and communicate with them through social media, I think you're still able to hopefully just get a little bit of a feel for that, right? And when it comes to recruiting, so it's tougher than ever. It is, and I'm not going to sit here and say I like it. I don't, but it's where we're at. You got to adapt. And you got to deal with it. So the one things that we'll always fall back to, or at least I'll always fall back to, is trust your connections, talk with your connections, the guys that you have really good relationships with in the game that have players or access to certain players. And you just got to try to build it that way. I don't know how else you do it without cheating. And it's not getting into that. So
adapt or die, right?
Yeah. That's what they say.
Now, one thing that I look forward to every spring is the random text from Coach Elbin on a Wednesday that they have off or something like that. Hey, what we got going on today in this area? Where do I need to be? What do I need to go see? During the hey, I'm not wrong. I'm not lying.
No, I was going to bring it up, by the way. I was going to bring that up. So
during the high school season, we're out getting coverage, evaluating, doing all those things. Obviously, it's a very busy time for your staff. How much are y'all following along and just across this state, across the region, nationally? How much does the social media piece help out?
A lot. It's so it's changed the way you don't feel necessarily all the time that you've got to go and beat the bushes. Instead, you can stay at a practice where you're trying to make adjustments with your current roster. I think it's eliminated that part of my anxiousness as a recruiting coordinator, being like, I got to go see this guy. But I know that is the job that you guys do, getting out there and putting out the content when you go to high school games. It allows us to stay at home sometimes and just check in. And that, in the same regard, though, it makes, the lazy coach, it makes him good sometimes. It makes his job easier. But I think what you see in person will never be replaced. How kids coming on and off the field, and just watching how they interact with their teammates, or there's things that you obviously don't see. Sometimes social media hides the good and the bad. But in relation to what you guys do and how you cover the state, it's been awesome. It's been awesome. And I do reach out to you or Shank or John, Nolan, whoever, and just where you guys at? What are you seeing? Because, you guys have your ears to the ground and you get pitching matchups ahead of time. And that's what you're focused on. And that's why you do a really good job.
Sometimes we get pitching matchups. Some people like to be secretive. The big high school, scouting report, they can't roll out who they're going to throw too early. So the other high school coach that's teaching math for 8 hours a day won't be able to get a scouting report together.
That's right.
No, it's funny. I was on with Sam earlier, Sam Roberts earlier, doing one, and Sam was talking about he was like, he said basically it was a blessing and a curse because it helps, but nobody can hide anymore. So maybe if you're on a guy that maybe somebody doesn't know about as much or something like that, and they're kind of in on, then it can kind of change things in that regard. But ask Ike 24 hours. 24 hours. That's what you get to lock it up before it goes out.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
All right. Now I'm gonna throw kind of some quick hitters at you. And we'll see how controversial these are. Best game or best game environment that you have been in as a coach, regardless of where it is. It could be recruiting, but preferably something you had some skin in the game, so to speak.
Best in-game environment. I will when outside of English Field, when it's rolling and it's packed. We won't use that one. Florida State's really good. Their fans are educated and the chants and all that stuff. So that's a really good one. I'll go with those guys. How about that?
Okay. Is it I forget the name of the stadium. I went to a camp there.
Dick Hauser?
Yep, there you go. It was, yeah, I think so. I guess wrong sport, but I was thinking Doak Campbell, but obviously that's the football field. Mm-hmm. But I guess I was like 15. I was actually at camp and playing with BJ Upton. So a little shameless plug there.
There you go.
At a Florida State camp with BJ. It was funny. There was I don't know, hundreds of us at the camp, or 100 of us or whatever, that, basically had X set of rules. And then there was BJ, like he had his own set of rules.
His own BP.
Yeah. But I think Dad was working, and wasn't anything illegal that happened or anything like that. But like everybody else had to be locked up in dorms and lights out by X time. And BJ was just taking the stroll of the place. He kind of do his thing. All right. And then last thing, favorite thing to do when you are not at the field.
Oh, this is easy. It's hunt. It's 100%. Getting out in the woods and just decompressing and not being around the noise. It's a passion of mine. That and golfing, two expensive hobbies that, the wife doesn't like too much because I'm away from her and the kids. But they're the two things that I enjoy doing the most. But if I had to pick one, it'd be hunting. It's easy.
Uh,
And Southwest Virginia is a great place to do it. So,
well, I was going to say, what are the just some connections locally, probably through some players or people there or whatever. You got a little spot to go.
I got a little small piece of land that I have access to hunt, and the game lands around here pretty good. I actually had pretty good success here this year, and in very limited time to hunt, which has been fun. And I also had a chance to go out of state over Thanksgiving break and go to Illinois, and we got on a pretty big one. So I'll send you a picture later. But no, I enjoy doing it, and like I said, that's what I like to do. If I could do anything other than be a baseball coach, I'd probably try to be a professional hunter in some form or fashion, a guide or something like that. But
The new Michael Waddell.
that's it.
Uh,
That's it.
Yeah, no, one thing about I've grown up and lived in the country, if you will, my whole life. So one thing, I don't hunt anymore. Honestly, this is my only downtime of the year, and I just kind of take the time to spend that at home with the family.
We're talking to guys like me, which is not smart. I don't know why you're doing that, but
Well, I got to be working at some point during the day. So,
there you go.
and plus, this is snow day number 2 when they're supposed to be back. So, we gotta get some sort of escape from that somehow. But
right.
One thing about hunters and fishers is they never disclose their secret locations. So you won't get that out of Coach Elbin.
No, you will not. No, you will not.
Well, Coach, I appreciate your time and everything, relationship and everything you've done, like I said, in our relationship in the past, and appreciate everything that you do, and best of luck this spring.
Thanks for having me on. And obviously what you guys do there is extremely instrumental in how, we go about our business and our success. So we appreciate you guys as well. And I'm sure I'll be shooting you a text for a game in early March. So
Take care, Coach.
hey, have a good one. Thanks, Jason. See you.